A warm welcome to my new video. This time I'll introduce you to the Canon FD 4.0 28 to 85mm lens. Thank you for your time and interest. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. You can also find more information about analog, hybrid and digital photography on my homepage, apertureonepointfour.com. And if you want to see pictures taken by me, visit me on Instagram, at apertureone.4. Canon offered only one zoom lens from the stronger wide-angle, 28mm, to the light telephoto of 85mm for the FD system. There were three other zoom lenses that started at the wide-angle focal length of 28mm, but these only went up to normal focal lengths of 50mm and 55mm, respectively. This 28 to 85mm lens was launched in November 1985. It can be used with all Canon cameras of the FD system. Of course, you can also adapt this lens to your mirrorless digital camera. Autofocus is not available, but the camera can tell you the appropriate shutter speed for the set aperture. I use the aperture priority feature on my Sony A7 III to do this, focusing with the aperture fully open, and using the magnifier function, and then closing the aperture with the adapter to the desired value. The camera contributes the appropriate shutter speed. The lens is relatively compact, with a weight of about 485 grams, a length of 104 millimeters, with a diameter of just under 77 millimeters. It is mostly made of plastic. The bayonet is made of metal. Screw-in filters of the size 72 millimeters can be used. I always use a protective filter, as I do with this lens. A few times such a filter has saved my front glass, so I have become an advocate of a protective filter. For more technical data, please refer to the table below. In summary, the mechanical quality is a good bit less than that of the Canon FD 3.5 35 to 105mm, or the FD 2.8 to 3.5 35 to 70mm. As you can see, the length of the lens does not change when zooming, but it does when focusing. The aperture ring can be unlocked from position A, by pressing a small button on the aperture ring itself, as is common with Canon FD lenses. The apertures can then be selected in half steps from f4 to f22. Position A is required for all cameras that offer automatic aperture control. The photographer preselects the shutter speed accordingly. On the Canon A1 and Canon T models, the aperture ring remains in the A position for all automatic programs. If you want to remove the lens from the camera, you just have to press the small metal-colored release button on the lens, and turn the lens clockwise, and then pull it away to the front. This is very easy to do. To attach the lens to your camera, make sure the red dot on the lens bayonet aligns with the red dot on the camera bayonet. Place the lens on the camera bayonet and turn it counterclockwise, until you hear a slight click. That's all. Many of you know what the red marks next to the mark of the set distance, orange line on the distance scale, are used for. They are the distance correction marks for taking infrared images. Should you still get an old, mostly expired film, you can get correctly focused images with this film and the lens presented here. You select your image section with the zoom ring as usual, and focus on the subject through the viewfinder of your camera. Now you have to correct the distance setting, because infrared light has a different wavelength or refractive index than our visible light. You must now determine the focal length, as well as the set distance. Then correct the distance setting to the focal length engraved in red that you used. In this example, the distance to the subject is 3 meters, and 28mm was used as the focal length. Now the distance of 3 meters must be corrected to the red 28mm index. Here you can see an example of the correction at a distance of 7 meters and 85 millimeters focal length. Finally, here is an example of the correction at a distance of 7 meters and 50 millimeters focal length. There are a few other things to consider before you insert infrared film into your camera and begin this type of photography. But this is getting too far off topic here. But what about the optical quality of the lens? I show you 4 photos here as an unprocessed RAW file. All photos were taken with Aperture 8. They show the focal lengths 28mm, 35mm, 50mm and 85mm. The low barrel distortion stands out positively, which you can correct relatively easily in the image editing program. A lens profile for automatic correction is not known to me. Unfortunately, this lens offers the worst imaging performance in the entire zoom range at 28mm. Lack of sharpness and contrast, even at Aperture 8. The extended zoom range up to a 28mm wide-angle lens is actually the selling point. You'll get better image quality in terms of sharpness, performance and contrast. With a focal length of 35mm, the distortion remains slightly barrel-shaped. The performance of the lens looks even better at 50mm and 85mm and Aperture 8. Here, the Canon FD 4.0 28 to 85mm delivers its best optical quality. However, my personal conclusion is that I would not put this lens on the shortlist of a standard zoom for the Canon FD system. The mechanical quality is good, but not as outstanding as a Canon FD 3.5 35 to 105mm, or a Canon FD or FD 2.8 to 3.5 35 to 70mm. Also, the other 2 lenses mentioned offer much better image quality. Therefore my recommendation: combine the 3.5 35 to 105mm rather with a good wide angle. For example, the Canon FD or FD 2.8 24mm, or, if the budget does not play such a big role, with a Canon FD 3.5 20 to 35mm length lens, should the 35mm not be wide angle enough for you. As always, at the end of a lens review, I'll show you some more pictures I took with the featured lens. They are processed RAW files from a Sony A7III. Thanks again for your interest and time. See you next time.